What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Fitness for Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Lohr, and today I have with me Dal Sekhon, coming from. Remind me where exactly in Canada you're coming to us from?
Edmonton,
Edmonton.
Alberta.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. I got a couple of buddies from working with Liberty Hockey who live up there in Edmonton. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm familiar with the place. I've never been there. Looking forward to it at some point soon. Dal is someone who's done what many people are looking to do in their life, which is to lose quite a large amount of weight. We're going to dive into today what the process of that looks like. So Dal, first, before we dive into all that, can you share with me a little bit about what you do, how you got into the industry, and kind of what that timeline has looked like for you? Yeah, just a brief kind of overview and what you do now.
Yeah, we'll keep it short. So I started my journey about 3 years ago of losing to date now 120 pounds.
Awesome.
And so that started over 3 years ago. And I work as a nutrition coach now, helping people kind of achieve similar results. And I actually started getting into it probably a little over a year into my journey. I was working with my trainer, Coach Andrew, and just being immersed in it and wanting to know more and learn more about my nutrition, coming from a yo-yo dieting background of over 2 decades, trying a lot of extreme exercise programs, extreme dieting, all of that. Been there, done that, and just learning about nutrition. And he encouraged and nudged me into thinking about taking a nutrition certification and possibly making it into a career. And so I did. And it's been one of the most transformative, just life-changing decisions I made, along with obviously my own journey. And yeah, that's where I started. And fast forward almost 2 years, and it's been an awesome ride thus far.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm grateful to have you with me today to kind of talk about this process and talk about just what it takes and what it takes to keep going, because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with as well, is getting it done and then
Yeah,
maintaining the process. So
maintenance is probably the most overlooked part of this whole process. So yeah, we'll get
yeah.
into that.
Yeah, just to start us off with this, when it comes to looking to kind of stop this cycle of yo-yo dieting and kind of getting to the point of, all right, I just want a solution that actually is going to work for the long term. What was different for you the last time?
What was different in terms of this last time that
Yeah.
I went on? Yeah, there's a lot of things, but mainly I'd have to say that it was, I always say, like for me, I kind of just woke up one day, and it was in that literal sense, waking up and saying, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was also, a lot of it had to do with kind of the internal struggles, and finally saying, hey, it's time to face them. And, although I think I've known for years, even prior to the reasons for the over consuming, turning to booze, food, etc., as a coping mechanism, I just never really wanted to face it. And so for me, it was like I explained, like a dimmer switch. So it was just a matter, it was slowly kind of getting to that on position. And then that day it was like, okay, switch it on, full on. And that's it. That's what sparked kind of that internal motivation to just change. And initially, we talk about prioritizing ourselves and how it's so important and all of that. And I really wanted to do that finally for me, not because of my kids or for any other external reason, but to really do it for me and be honest with myself about the choices I've made over the years, and just work on that kind of inner healing and really do a deep dive into the reasons for, like, the whys of the inaction and why I wasn't doing what I knew I needed to do. And we talk about the basics. And although it is all about the basics, I think a lot of conditioning over the years, diet culture, misinformation, all of that ingrained beliefs was still playing a role, even in the initial part of my journey. So
Yeah.
that's what it was for me, for sure.
Okay. Very cool. What about, so when you were in that, kind of deciding, kind of the dimmer switch was slowly moving in the right direction for you, what do you think would be helpful for people like myself, other coaches, to know about the mentality for you at that point? What do you think would be helpful?
I think one of the biggest things is overwhelm
Mm.
and not bombarding, your clients or people with all of these things to do things, and really just looking at your client and having a real conversation and trying to understand where they're coming from, what their history has been like. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get into the weeds of their trauma and things like that. That's not our scope. But really, just understanding what their lives look like. Are they a mom of three, single, working two jobs, and really getting a picture, a wider lens, kind of what that life looks like, and just having those conversations and then being able to tailor what you feel is compatible with their life, what they can do in that moment and meeting them where they're at. And I know as coaches, we want to do this, 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 and this, but that's not always the case.
Mm.
And really just, again, meeting them where they're at and, asking them what they're comfortable with. Hey, what can you do today? Right. And it depends. Like, it depends on where that client's coming from. Do they have 100 pounds to lose? Do they just want to lose 20 pounds? Is it 10 pounds? And then you're going to come at that different with different strategies, right? And within that, it's like, okay, well, what are their beliefs around food? What have they grown up with? What kind of diet culture, what generation? Like, if you're like me, I'm in my 40s, so the 80s or the 90s diet culture, thousands even, was horrendous.
Yeah.
And understanding that aspect of it, and slowly just compassion, a lot of compassion, I think. And I think some of that is lacking, and we just want to give them a formula, like do this, this, and that, and it'll work, go on your way. But it's just more complicated, more complex, and more nuanced than that. So key advice would be just really getting to know your client on a more personal level.
Yeah. Do you feel like there were times? Well, I'll save this question for a little bit later.
Okay.
But I'll tuck that away. When it came to you starting up with Andrew and kind of working out a plan for making progress and losing the weight, what things do you feel like he did to help set you up for success?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things is I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel judged. I felt very welcome. And he really did meet me where I was at. He just, I don't know, he has a way with clients, with working with people. And when I started, I'd already lost about 50 pounds on my own.
Amazing.
And, but I was still 200 plus pounds, right? And so for myself, I still felt I didn't feel good just in my own skin, my clothes in general, like the confidence, things like that. And I was still, I'll be honest, I still had a lot of my old beliefs with me. Like, I was still counting points. I was still doing Weight Watchers. And so I still didn't understand nutrition at that point. And there were still fears around food and fears around eating too much. And so working with him one on one, again, not feeling judged, and him meeting me where I was at and just conversing a lot about, where I was in my life, talking, asking him questions, and him just providing, a ton of resources and answers for me, and just like encouraging me to do things on my own as well and look into these things, and never deterring me from what I was doing. Right. So it was like, cool, like, you're doing Weight Watchers, continue to do it, but at the same time also educating me, on nutrition. And so after a certain point, I came to my own conclusion, which is what we want, that, yeah, like, wow, that wasn't working for me, even though I felt like it was. And that because I started calorie count, like, I started tracking on my fitness pal. So cross-referencing what I was eating and how much, and realized I could eat more and still lose weight. And I didn't understand that initially. And so that was a big eye opener. So I was still in a deficit, just not in as large of a deficit, right? And so I felt more, then I started feeling more fueled and just more energy and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of how that progressed, and how we began, and how he, him as a personal trainer and a coach, how that helped me in my journey. So
Awesome. What are so you mentioned one of like understanding, like, oh, I can eat, more, feel fueled, and not have, and still be in a calorie deficit and understand that well. What are some other mindset shifts that, and like maybe things that you learned either on your own or working with Andrew, that like, okay, these are the things that these changes are going to help me continue to make progress?
Yeah, so definitely, of course, staying in that deficit, and then so a lot of fears around foods, right? Like low carb, right? Bread, not eating bread, and associating gaining weight with eating carbs versus the type of foods that we're eating. They just contain more fat, and so therefore more calorie dense. Things like that. Like that's what we equate us gaining weight to, is not the fact that we're eating really calorie dense items, but the fact that we're just eating quote unquote air quotes carbs. So my idea of just understanding the basics of calories and energy, all of that shifted. I'm starting to realize that, no foods were off limits, why eating whole nutrient dense foods most of the times was important. And it took time. And one of the other things, big things for me, was learning to live at maintenance.
Mm.
So I've never truly lived in maintenance prior to this time around. It was always one extreme or the other. And didn't understand that either. And so he encouraged me. He's like, no, just let's try it out. Let's try it out. And so over the last, 3+ years, I haven't been in a continuous deficit. And so I learned to take those breaks, which was amazing, life changing. And a lot of women haven't learned or even know what maintenance means, right? And so that was huge. That was a big mindset shift for me to actually experience it and go through it, and also like learn about scale fluctuations, things like that, and why that scale weight fluctuates, and healing that relationship as well with the scale.
Mm.
So all of these things that we talked about, or we talk about in general in the space, the all or nothing mentality as well. And so going back to what we were talking about before, about like the deficit range, just realizing that I could eat a little bit more and feel good, that helped. And tracking really helped me with the all or nothing mindset as well. Initially, those were some of the big things, big mindset shifts that occurred. They occurred over time, didn't happen overnight for sure. That was definitely not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all those are fantastic. If somebody can make all of those shifts that you just mentioned, like there's a lot of success to be had there. If I can even get somebody to make one of those shifts, you can have a lot of positive results. I wanted to, if you don't mind, you mentioned, all right, fixing the relationship with the scale and recognizing scale fluctuation. What did that change do for you that helped lead to being more successful? How did that change your mind going into each week or each day?
Yeah. Okay. So if we just rewind to my history and of, doing these really extreme diets, or the 21-day fix, or I remember these 10-day diets where it was like four meals, very basic. I didn't know calories then. So if I'd have to guess, I'm thinking like 800 calories, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you would do that for 10 days. Of course, you'd lose water weight and whatnot. So when you do these diets, you don't see that scale weight drop. As soon as that happens, you're just like, I might initially, but you're 2 weeks in and now nothing's happening, right? I know that's normal now, but nothing's happening. And so I throw in the towel. Done. And that was the cycle. Also, just always fixated on that, because that's the only measure that I grew up with, and I know many women and people have grown up with. It's just the scale. That's it.
Yep.
That's your indicator of success. And so, understanding that over time, I weigh myself daily. I look at those trends and understanding that it is a trend. And I heard this somewhere and I forgot who said it, but they were saying that like fat loss is happening in the background, right? Like fat loss is happening. You're not going to see it. And what you see day to day is really just your full body, right? Whether you've been to the washroom, whether you ate too much sodium, all of these different factors. And then I had to see that myself in real time, but I had to give it enough time. And so that's the key, is just letting go of that timeline and really focusing on the process and not the outcome. And in due time, these lessons will be had, and you just have to really give yourself that time to go through and experience it yourself. Because I don't know if you felt this, or maybe your clients have expressed this to you. I used to feel like this, and my clients have expressed this to me, but they can see, read, hear all of this. All of us telling you, hey, just do these things. Don't worry, don't worry. These are scale fluctuations, et cetera, et cetera. 5 things that you have, main things: prioritize protein, sleep, movement, strength training, stress management, all of the above. But until they actually go through it and give themselves the time to experience it firsthand, real time for themselves, it's still they just don't believe it, right? So
Yeah.
how do you encourage that and get that kind of internalize that, self belief that I'm capable, I can do this? Well, one, obviously consistently doing it and giving that time for yourself to go through it and actually experience it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No, that's definitely, it's one of those things where someone can tell you this seemingly unbelievable thing that you're like, all right, I guess that makes sense, maybe, but until you experience it, you're not gonna believe it.
no,
So,
no.
and that does have to do with, and this kind of falls into the next question, the understanding, like being able to zoom out
Yeah.
and think of things not as like, hey, I need to get it done from this point to this point, rather than, so being able to zoom out from a timeline perspective. You and I talked a little bit beforehand of like, all right, being able to pull those levers and kind of tune dials of, all right, I can increase my intensity or decrease my intensity. And you mentioned, with a calorie deficit, I can be in less of a calorie deficit, but that does, that makes it more enjoyable. It makes it more sustainable, but it does change your timeline a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about, you've probably at this point been through a number of adjustments of saying, all right, I'm going to adjust my intensity up, I'm going to adjust my intensity down. But what impacts your decision making around, maybe adjusting things?
Okay. So maybe you've heard me talk about this, but it's in my messaging everywhere. But I had an aha moment where I was like, must have been like maybe 7, 8 months into my journey. And I had this aha moment where I was like, I just need to work within the parameters of my life. So the backstory is I was driving to my training session. And at this point, I was training for a few months. I was probably doing, 3 workouts a week, trying to, all with having 2 young children, postpartum, dealing with a whole slew of things. Like I have hypothyroidism. I had really bad postpartum. I was at the heaviest weight I've ever been, dealing with emotional things, dealing with inner healing, all of that. And as and at that point, I had got into some more movement, drinking my water, tracking. So a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. And I thought, oh my God, like, I can't do this. This is too much. What am I doing? How am I going to get it done as I'm driving? And so when I got to Andrew's house, I talked to him. I'm like, this is too much. I don't think I can do this. And he's like, cool, don't. What can you manage? What can you do right now? And so that completely changed the trajectory of my entire kind of journey. So I really come at it with working within the parameters of your life. So it depends on where I'm at, what season of life I'm in. And I think that goes for everyone. And yeah, would it be ideal and optimal to work out 4 days a week, get 10,000 steps, sleep 7 to 9 hours? Sure, on paper, but hello, real life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think you really need to tweak it based on what works for you, but really be honest. Like, really be honest with yourself and not use it as a reason not to do the things that need to be done, but really be honest and figure out where can what's a priority, what's your non-negotiable, on your worst day, what are some of the things that even on your worst day you can get done. That's an excellent kind of principle I've heard and I use myself with my clients. But yeah, that I'd say for me, that's just been my guiding principle.
That's good.
Yeah, work. And you're a parent, right? Being a
Yeah.
parent brings its own issues and the lack of sleep. Gosh, kids being sick,
Yeah. Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
right? So just
Yeah.
doing your best day to day, and knowing that that season of life will change. And so I have gone from, working out 1 day a week to 2 days a week consistently to just recently promising myself 3 days a week,
Nice.
which I've kept up for now 2 weeks.
There you
So
go.
see, like yeah, you have to feel good about what you're doing and just be honest about it.
Yeah.
That's my advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say this, because you also seem like you're someone who is very good with your time, of like, whenever we're on, Aram's calls, I always see you getting your steps in. So like you're not, taking your time for granted. You're getting a couple things in at a time if you can.
Yes, I
And that
am.
is
I'll
sorry.
admit I'm a procrastinator. Okay, wait, I'm labeling myself. No, I do procrastinate. I do tend to. However, I will get it. It has to be intentional. That's why I
Mm,
say you have to be honest with yourself because
yeah.
these things just don't get done, right? We can
Right.
feel like we want to do them. We can wish for certain things to happen. We can envision things, but until we make that choice to do it. And so much of this, I feel, is about just realizing and really understanding the power of choice, right? Taking personal responsibility and choice. Granted, there's could be a lot more going on beneath the surface. But once we can come to that kind of conclusion, realization, it is really empowering. And so I choose to have a non-negotiable for my steps every day. And I try to I try to just stack things. And I think it's Atomic Habits. They talk about stacking habits, right?
Yeah.
He talks about that, but it's common now. And so I try to do things like make sure whenever I'm on my own calls or on coaching calls, I just hop on that treadmill. That way it's getting done. And if that's not happening for that day, then in the morning, I am definitely front loading things. I'm front
Yeah.
loading my steps, trying to work out. Mind you, that wasn't possible at a certain point in my life, right?
Sure.
When I had my two younger ones and my little one, I remember just working out for 20 minutes. The kid would wake up and then I'd have to go do the rest of the 20, 25 minutes at a later time. And so I remember doing that. And now it's like, wow, now I'm in a season of life where I don't have any reason not to do these things. And so that comes on me now, right? I have to
Yeah.
choose to do that. It falls on me. So, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It does have to be, there's intentionality that has to be there. Otherwise, you fall back to whatever your, basic instinct is, which is usually not good. We're not naturally, I think most people are not naturally hardwired to be active round the clock.
Yeah, or get out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
It's safe. It feels
Yeah.
comfortable, and we have to. I don't want to use the word fight, but we have to recognize that and kind of keep that part of us down, and
Yeah.
search for that other part of us that says no, go do the thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Cool. And I think this is the question I tucked away from earlier. One question when it comes to maintenance
yeah,
and times when you are, all right, I'm gonna just be steady for a little while. I'm not going to intentionally lose weight right now. Obviously, we know that kind of lets the body chill out and nervous system stops freaking
yeah.
out for a sec because it's like, all right, we're not slowly dying anymore because that's body's trying to keep us alive. But with those moments, what changes for you? What intentional changes do you make when you move into like a season of maintenance, even if it's a short one?
Okay, two schools of thought.
Yeah.
There's one where it's like, well, and again, it depends because it depends on your experience. It depends on if I really feel, and this is my personal like experience. I think if you've dealt with yo-yo dieting for many, many years, I think it's better to take the longer route and kind of, for the most part, like the 80-20 guideline, eat the foods, you love, figure out a way to make them in a way that fits for you. One thing that I've heard is that, the chicken, broccoli, and rice, like the plain food, like that's what people feel like they have to eat, right? And so there are some people that can do that. I've done it. It just never lasted for me. And so a big part of this for me, even in fat loss, was to learn to eat not only my cultural foods, but just foods in general that actually were satiating and satisfying. There are some that can argue or will argue, well, maybe no, don't do that. Cool, whatever. This is just my experience. This is, what I teach. And it's worked for me because I could finally like eat Indian food. Indian food isn't inherently fattening. I know that's if you're ordering from a takeout restaurant, yeah, for sure. It's going to be just ton of oil in it, right?
Yeah.
Or butter, whatever. And so that was really important for me. And so not much changed from fat loss to maintenance. And what I learned was just basically it was for me, And for a lot of people, it's portion sizes,
Mhm.
right? Learn to eat in a way in fat loss. Yes, there's going to be more restraint. You might have to either minimize or exclude certain items to make things fit. I'll give you an example. I eat sandwiches for lunch every day. And so in fat loss, I just reduced avocado or didn't have it at all. I didn't include cheese, but everything else stayed the same. And in maintenance, I add a lot of avocado. I don't include cheese anymore because I've gotten used to not having it, but I still put mayo on. I still did that in fat loss.
Nice.
And so I still eat similar foods, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
eat similar foods, the portions have changed, and there's a little bit more flexibility built in.
Right.
That's it, right? So in that sense, not much has changed. And I think that's also another key point for many people to understand is that you don't have to have boring, flavorless food. You can make it work for you. Sometimes that just takes a little bit of practice and trial and error. But yeah, and so switching to maintenance and being in maintenance, it's awesome because I can eat all the things. My meals are a little bit more, there's more calorically higher, and I can include a little bit more fun food. So yeah, and I think I wrote something one day, and someone pointed out, oh, I thought it was a good kind of slogan there that satisfaction is a strategy. It
That's
is.
great. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But one more thing, I'll preface that. Your steps don't change. They shouldn't, right? Like your movement, strength training,
Right.
all the things that you're focusing on in fat loss, they just continue in maintenance. I mean, if we think in maintenance, we can just not move, well, that's going to affect, a lot of things, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that is a good point because I think a lot of people, and maybe this is one of the beliefs you might have encountered early on in shifting. A lot of people have this belief that like the more cardio you do, the more activity
mm,
you do, like that's what's going to drive weight loss, which to a degree has truth to it, right? You're burning calories, you're burning more calories, but that's often not the things that lead to like that exactly what you just said. Satisfaction
yeah.
has a strategy when it comes to being like satisfying our body's needs for, hey, I need a little bit of movement, I need a little bit of load, right?
Yep.
Those are the things that are gonna lead to long-term change. Was that's something that I guess where I'm going is shifting. What I'd like to see is on the broad scope, and something that I'm sure you and I have both seen plenty of is, can we shift the narrative from what we do in the weight room and with our activity level, our steps, that is what drives our health, not
Mhm.
necessarily our weight.
Yeah. No, exactly that. I used to be a cardio bunny as well, elliptical trainer for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely. That is one of the biggest shifts if we can look at exercise as more for, cardiovascular health, all of the benefits, even just nervous system regulation, getting
Right.
outside, getting movement in, just good for digestion, overall, just so many benefits, right? And if we just look at it for that and then really place the emphasis on nutrition for fat loss, because I'll tell you, this is for me, the first 50 pounds was strictly nutrition. Yes, would it be great to have started strength training right from the get-go? Sure, but when you have a lot of weight to lose, or even if you don't, sometimes we're just not there yet. And circling back to that whole overwhelm, the point, what I said, like don't overwhelm, that's a really important aspect of it, right? So if we just throw strength training and movement all at once right in the beginning, that could be too much and it might deter the person from wanting to even take that next step. For me, it was a physical limitation, right? Having to lose 120 pounds plus because I'm still on this journey. It was one of the things that I couldn't do. Like besides my basic moving around the house, going up and down, taking care of my children, I was maybe getting a few thousand steps a day. I just focused on nutrition and not even quality of my nutrition, just quantity,
Mm.
just tracking, just seeing how much I was eating. And then slowly again, as I immersed myself in the nutrition aspect and met Andrew and started learning about it, that the attention started shifting to more whole foods and things like that. So, it's all an evolution. This didn't happen overnight for me. It happened in stages. I started with just tracking and nutrition, started strength training, slowly incorporated movement. I went from like 3,000 steps maybe to 6,000. Then eventually over time, I was hitting 8,500. Then that next stage, like 10,000. Now I'm between, usually around that 15,000 mark. That didn't,
Nice.
I didn't start with that,
Right.
right? That's taken over 3 years. Again, going back to intention. And also, I want to be clear about this. Working from home and doing the job that I do now and coaching, it affords me the opportunity and the ability to do that. If I were to go back to my, 8 to 4 job, pick up, daycare, whatever, school, pick up, drop
Right.
off, activity, managing the household, all of that, 15,000 would not even come
No.
into my realm.
No.
Yeah, like not even a goal that I try to get done. So I want your audience to understand, again, this comes back to working within the parameters of your life and not comparing your life and your journey and what you're doing today to someone else, especially on social media, because that's just a highlight reel. Add AI into the mix now. We're just talking like,
Yeah.
I can't even decipher reality from not. And
Right.
so, like just focusing on you, focus on what you can do, focus on your everyday, actions and choices, and just take it day by day. And slowly over time, all of those choices, as small or minuscule they may seem, they're not. They're really not. They will compound. And like 6 months from now, you'll be looking back and you'll be up here looking back like, whoa, I've come a long way. And we need to appreciate that and, just every day kind of recognize all of the wins that are happening, no matter how small, because I don't think they're ever small.
Yeah.
A win's a win's a win.
Right.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, went on a tangent there.
No, that's good. I love it. I did want to touch on something, for my audience, more the clients that I see, and just to give them a framework, give everybody a framework for kind of how I do this with clients when it comes to steps. You mentioned lifestyle changes, what that looks like for you. So what we know is that, research tells us a lot of health benefits, from our daily activity, particularly walking. If we can get it up to kind of that 7,500 range is where we start to see some of the, like going over that, some of the benefits start to drop off in terms of how much, how valuable those next 2,000-3,000 steps are, decreases a little bit. It doesn't mean it doesn't help you. It just means it doesn't help you quite as much as the first, 7,500, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
In that range. So what I tell my clients and the people I work with is, hey, find out where you're at to start and increase by about 100 a week. And so figure out, all right, hey, that usually takes anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes, depending on the person that it is. Because I have, a lot of people who are coming to me in pain. And so that's an obstacle we have to overcome. And sometimes walking can be the thing that's too much, that sets them off and kind of goes over that maximum recoverable volume for them. So what I always say, go, try and increase by about 100 per week until you reach a point where we feel like it's challenging but tolerable, but manageable. We stay there for a while, and usually some good things happen. And then usually we get to a point where, hey, I feel like I'm ready to go up again. And that's when we do it again. And we kind of slowly, like you, slowly taper it up to their comfort zone. And usually within, a few months, comfort zone changes a little bit and where we can push that up. So I think it's valuable for people to kind of have that mindset and hear that tactic of, hey, this is just take it 50 to 100 steps at a time.
Yeah, small, no pun intended, small steps.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Small steps. And that's what it comes to. And listen, okay, some of the benefits or the ratio, it decreases of those benefits. The mindset now is not even like my non-negotiable is 10,000, right? And not because, they say 10,000. No, it's just 10,000 is a good number for me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm always getting more because I don't look at it as, I hit that number, I'm done. I'm going to sit now. It's like, I have the opportunity to move, so I'm going to move, right?
Yeah.
Again, intention. And because I like moving now, it makes me feel good. And even just making that choice of sitting and not sitting when I don't have to, it makes me feel good. Like it just, yeah, I'm doing something, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm doing something that I don't have to do, but I want to do. And it just comes with time. And, er, we just have to be okay with what works for us and not what they, air quotes, say, because who's they? But research, like you mentioned,
Right.
500 steps is the goal for most of Gen Pop, right? Same thing with you. That's what we do. Okay, where are you at right now? Cool. Let's just increase that by a little bit and we'll see
Yeah.
where we get to. Yeah.
I love it. Dal, we're getting close to where I want to be in terms of time. We've covered
Mhm.
quite a bit. Is there anything I've not asked or anything you've not shared that you want to share about, to say it's somebody who's maybe on that verge and wants to take the next step to, really dive in and,
Yeah.
make this
Okay.
change in their life? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one is to be honest with yourself,
Mm.
for sure. And two is it's hard, all of this. It's not easy. Yes, is it simple? We hear that it is, but there's so many other variables that come into play, and really sitting down and maybe sitting in the discomfort, if you haven't already, would be something that you might want to consider doing. A little bit of a deep dive, journaling, whatever works for you. Sometimes it's not as deep, and that's cool too. And that just means, okay, like let's start, right? But it is very difficult. It's not without its struggle. I want to be honest. I am 3 years plus into it. I'm content, yes. Do I have other goals? For sure. Like we're always evolving. And that's the thing with goals. You start off with one, and as you go and move through the process, they're going to change. And they've changed for me. And I just, again, like when people say do like the inner healing or do, whatever, yes, the healing has to happen. It's not to say that you're going to be cured all of a sudden either. It's something that I'm just working on all of the time,
Mm.
right? And I'm going to continue to work on that. And I have my moments too throughout my journey as well. These past 3 years, I have fallen many times. Difference is I actually get back up and I keep taking that step forward. And in my mind, how I reframed it is that I'm always moving forward. And so if we go back to that, like, what can you do, on your very worst day, and you do that, then you're winning.
I love that.
Yeah, just know that it is difficult and it's not an
Mm.
easy process, and life will get in the way. That's bound to happen, but we just have to keep moving forward. So,
I love
yeah.
that. That's wonderful. Dal, if people are looking to hear more from you, where can they find you?
I'm primarily just on Instagram. I do have
Okay.
Facebook. Let's just Instagram, and it's Nutrition Coaching by Dal.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Dal, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you being open and vulnerable about it. I'm sure it's something that I know that you've shared on a number of occasions, and it's in your messaging, it's in what you talk about with your clients. But I really appreciate you sharing it with us today.
I appreciate you having me and allowing
Yeah.
me the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you guys for listening to the Fitness for Life podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Jackson Lohr. If you guys are looking for, if you're on that yo-yo dieting trend and you're looking for somebody, Dal might be your gal. So make sure to check her out on Instagram, Nutrition Coaching by Dal. If you're somebody, you're in your 50s plus, and you're looking for somebody to coach you through maybe some chronic medical issues, some pain, let me know. Shoot me a message at fitnessforlifejackson@gmail.com or message me on any of my social media platforms. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.